Hello, I'm JW, and this is a smoke alarm. This one was replaced because basically it's expired. This type of thing only lasts about 10 years, and then you're supposed to replace them, mainly because the components inside obviously age and so on, so can't be guaranteed to work after that period of time. Now, this particular one is one that had a 9-volt battery backup in it, so it's 230-volt mains powered, has a battery backup inside. And replacement of this should be just a straightforward deal because these just clip onto a plate in the ceiling, and so therefore it's just unclip the old one and then just clip on the new one from the same manufacturer. But in this particular case, of course, it wasn't as straightforward as that, because obviously we're not going to make a video about just clipping a smoke alarm onto a plate. Now, when I first went to this property to have a look around at this and various other things, this smoke alarm was working, or at least the green light was on, indicating that it did have mains power. But when we actually returned to the property to replace this and do various other things, the green light was off, and sure enough, testing at the terminals showed that there was no power there. So clearly something had changed between being there originally and then being there on the second visit. Now, of course, these things will run on battery, but obviously the whole point is they're on the mains power all the time, and then the battery's only used if there is a power failure or some problem with that. Otherwise, you might as well just buy some battery thing and change the batteries every 6 months. Now here's the alarm, and say just 9-volt battery goes in there. I've removed that obviously, and this clips onto the plate. And this, as it says here, is the 9-volt battery backup. The 9-volt batteries typically last for years because they're only used if there is a power failure. The main failure of the battery is the fact that even batteries that aren't actually being used do degrade over time. So over the 10-year life of this alarm, you might have to replace the batteries, say 2 or 3 times perhaps. Certainly not that often. This particular one, as you can see here, expired in September 2020, and this video has been made in August 2021, so this was nearly 12 months out of date. So that's that. Now, as well as the power not being there, which was bad enough in itself, another cause was the state of this backing plate. Now, this is probably the backing plate from 10 years before that alarm was fitted. This property is about 20 years old. This is probably from the 20 years old when it was put there originally. As you see, it's slightly more yellowed and not quite the same shade as the other one. But one other thing which was apparent when trying to remove this is that the clip here for removing it from the wall, you basically just put a screwdriver in it, press it down and you can unclip it, is excessively worn and actually fairly damaged. And we can see a closer view there that it's got a number of extremely deep gouges on it. The whole edge of this is completely scraped and graunched away, and quite frankly it wasn't actually gripping onto the thing at all, so it's pretty obvious that this has been taken off of the ceiling, or at least the alarm's been taken off of this a lot of times, so far more than you'd expect just from replacing the odd battery or so. Even every 3 years, that's only going to be around 6 times or so in the whole history of it being there, but that say is pretty much completely destroyed. So something's definitely going wrong here. So here's the plate on the ceiling, and it's actually the new plate. Testing in there, and you see there's no power there whatsoever. So that's with the light off. Now if we turn the light on over here, and then we go back to the plate, and you probably guess exactly what the deal is now that the light is on. So now if we test in the hole, we can therefore see that the power is in fact on. So, oh well, it's just switched with the light, so that's fairly common. But if we turn the light off at this switch over here, now you would expect the power to have gone away, but if we go back to the plate here and test in the hole, well, as you can see, the power's still on. So it turns out that it's only affected by this one switch over here, and that is the switch which determines whether there's power at the smoke alarm plate or not. Now here's the offending switch, and we're actually testing with 2 probes here, so we can see at the moment that on the left terminal there's basically nothing, and in the right terminal we can see that there is the full 240 volts there, and the light's on. If we turn the light off, we can now see that in the left terminal there we've got the full 230 volts and nothing in the right one. And if we go back to the other switch at the other end of the hallway here, it's not particularly long, you can see this switch also operates the light normally. On the back of that we just have 3 wires, one in each of the 3 holes there on the terminals. Now if we go back to this one, notice the light is now on. Just connect up to the earth connection there, and again we can just test in these holes, so we can see that it's pretty much what we had previously. This one on the right here has nothing, and then the one on the left there has the 230 volts, and it turns out that the smoke alarm is connected to that one on the left so it's only this switch which actually affects whether the alarm's on or off. So now they've swapped around. So it's not the fact that the light's on or off, it's the fact that this switch is in one of the two positions. Now, I don't know how long that problem's been there. It could well have been there since the place was built, which was, say, just over 20 years ago, because the wiring looks pretty much original. No evidence of any particular changes. Now, I'll just draw out the circuit for that, because it may not have been obvious from that video what was going on there. Basically, it's a two-way circuit. So we have a light in the ceiling, and then we have a switch at each end of the hallway. Either switch can turn the light on or off. And this particular one is wired in conduit. It's actually plastic conduit in the walls with single conductors inside. And the neutrals are also going to the switch position. Neutrals aren't actually connected to the switch, so we're not going to draw those in. So what we've got is basically a switch at one end of the hall there. We have a switch at the other end of the hall. So nothing too surprising. Switches have 3 terminals each. So to draw those in. And of course in the middle there we have the light. And of course we also have the smoke alarm, all from the same circuit. Now there are neutrals involved here, of course. Neutrals go to the lamp and of course the smoke alarm. Not going to draw those in because those don't really affect anything. And of course there are also protective conductors, the green and yellow variety, which again go to all of the positions. Again, not particularly important because these are plastic switches, but they are obviously there in the circuit. Now at this end of the hallway, the switch with just those 3 terminals in it and 1 wire in each, we've got a red one comes from here, and this is the one that actually goes to the light. So that just simply goes over into the ceiling and into the light fitting. The other 2 here just go to the other switch, so they go along the hallway in the conduit over there to the other switch. Strappers or travellers in some cases, basically just 2 wires that connect the 2 switches together. And then at this end we've also got a wire coming in, and this is the power coming in from the consumer unit, so that's permanent power there. Now without the smoke alarm involved, all we've got is just a standard 2-way circuit, so these switches can either connect those 2 together or these 2, and again the same at this end over here. So if it was connected at the top and this was also connected to the top, then the light is on because it's linked all the way through. If you move this one or this one, the light goes off, so it would stay down here, and then when they're both in the down position, then again the light will turn on. So pretty much a standard deal. I've covered this in other videos before. Now the smoke alarm obviously has its permanent power as well. Now this is where somebody got it wrong, and it's not really clear how they managed to make such an obvious mistake. Now of course the smoke alarm requires permanent power and should not be connected to any part of the switched circuit here. So this should have gone just over to the terminal here, the line terminal there, so it would have permanent power, and then you've still got a switching action going on. But it turns out that whoever installed it actually connected it here instead. So this means that this switch here, which is up in that corner by that door, if it's in this position the smoke alarm gets nothing, and if it's in the other position then of course the smoke alarm gets some power. And it doesn't matter whether the light's on or off, because if the light's on, it could be these 2 positions when the smoke alarm gets nothing, or if the light's on it could also be those 2 positions at the bottom, which means the smoke alarm gets power and so does the light. So a rather strange arrangement, and so it's not really clear how they managed to make such an obvious mistake with the connections in here. Whether it was tested at the time I don't know, but this is the kind of thing which wouldn't necessarily show up with standard testing, because of course if you just happen to test it at the time the switches are in these positions and you test it at the smoke alarm, yep, power's there, no problem whatsoever. And even if you turn the light on and off from this switch, yep, the smoke alarm still has power, because it's all dependent on the positioning of that switch only and not the one further down the hallway. Now in this particular case the fix was of course rather straightforward. Once we'd worked out what was going on, it was simply to remove the wire from there, and of course it just connects into the permanent line over there, which is where it should have been in the first place. And here's a picture of what it looked like before. So you can see there they've got the 2 red wires going into that left terminal there, which is one of those which goes across to the other switch. And then the fix is, say, just moving that wire, so you can see on this image here, 1 terminal in the 2 at the end there, and then the common at the top with the line coming in just has that smoke alarm one going out. And again, notice in this picture that the two strappers or travellers are actually twisted together as they come out of the switch box. So again, it's fairly obvious which ones it is for those. So it's a rather strange thing. And also noticing this, that the fixing screw, or at least one of them, is still clipped on the back of the plate, because whoever built this place stuck the boxes much too deep in the wall, and that screw probably didn't reach. So a new smoke alarm was obviously put on the ceiling, and we can see there it's all working with the green light on. And so I did replace the backing plate as well, because the old one was pretty much destroyed, and though it would have theoretically fitted on there, it wouldn't have been a particularly secure job. And this particular one has a lithium built-in battery which recharges, so no need to take this off the ceiling for any reason other than its replacement in 10 years' time or so. So that is it for this particular video. Until next time, thanks for watching.